All right, hello everyone. Welcome to the Healthy, Wealthy, Wise show. I'm your host, Corey Sievers, and look, on behalf of everyone here in the Savvy team, welcome along to the show. We have a great show planned for this particular session. Looking forward to talking about teens, how to have a healthy and a happy life. So this is a particularly good one for those of you who are parents, grandparents, guardians, and yes, for you as teenagers as well. So looking forward to chatting about all things health and happiness and improvement for teens. We're also going to be talking about change your perspective, change your life in the Wealthy and Wise section. And this is really this is a pretty important topic for all ages, because sometimes we can be so close to things in our life that we end up sort of being, we have the blinkers on and we can't see the forest for the trees, so to speak. We can't see the whole perspective. We can't see the good for being so focused on the bad. So we want to help you to be able to find the good, look for the blessings, and look for what you can appreciate in life so that you can totally change the trajectory of your life. Maybe take you off in a positive direction. If you're new to what we do here in the Savvy team, we're all about helping you reach a higher level of health and lifestyle. And so when you connect in with our team, you'll have access to all sorts of action plans and everything to help you to achieve that well-being, plus a community of people to support you in doing it. So look, if you're new here to the show and you're joining us on, say, YouTube, consider subscribing. We share regular tips and obviously the Healthy, Wealthy, Wise show, but other tips as well, such as our Wellness Whiteboard Wednesdays and the like. And of course, if you're on Facebook, then consider following us and liking us. And make sure wherever you're clicking, make sure you click to see first or click for notifications so that you don't miss some of the important information that we share. I'd also like to know where you're coming in from and if you're new to the show. So let us know in the comments whether you're on YouTube or Facebook or even Periscope. Let us know where you're coming in from, and please do communicate with us as we go along through the show. Now, with information around teens and teen health and changing your mindset, this is important information that we feel that everyone needs to know. So please share the love, pay it forward. We love the whole concept of, the movie Pay It Forward with little Trevor McKinney. He drew up on the blackboard there at school for his social sciences project. He said, if I helped somebody with a needed favor, and just if I had 3 people with a needed favor and they just shared it with 3 other people and they helped 3 other people and they helped 3 other people, he said we could change the world. And there are some people out there right now needing health and lifestyle favors. And so we can really make a difference in their life. So please share this information. Consider sharing. All right. So hi, Emma. Welcome along. Hi, Dragisa. Great to have you here. And thanks for your comments. Do let us know if you are brand new and joining us on the show. So yes, we are talking about teens. So this is what we're talking about today. We're talking about tips for a healthy body and a healthy and a happy life, plus change your viewpoint, change your life. So again, welcome to the show. Joining us later on will be Linda. Linda's our lead wellness guide and community manager. And me, I'm the, amongst other things, I'm really the wellness education manager and the digital strategist around here. So hence I get all the jobs of all the technology and all that sort of thing. But also it's a passion of mine to really uncover some of the things that you're not being told about through the typical channels. Today as I said, we're all about helping you to sort of cut through the confusion, understand what you can do to reach that optimal health and lifestyle for you. And, our community is all about supporting and guiding you to that process. One of the things that sort of frustrates me today is that when you go Googling information, many people today feel as though, no worries, because I can just GTS that. If I need to know something, I'll just GTS it. one of the things that I have found recently is that with much of the, much of things such as search engine optimization and the money that can be funneled into that, and maybe some conspiracy theories about Google favoring certain medical-based sites. I have found, as we're looking for information, say for example teen health or any other thing, that the statistics say that many people don't go past the first or second page in Google searches, and yet what I've seen is the same information basically duplicated over and over and over again, and all of the medical sites showing up on those first pages. So in other words, those who have the budget to put a lot into the search engine optimization. And so I see the same things repeated, and quite frankly, I don't believe some of that is the latest information, because it's sort of, so people are repeating the same dogma. Say for example, we're going to be talking about in our quick tip session a little bit about sunlight and the importance of morning sunlight and the huge benefits that has for your health and well-being. Yes, I'm getting ahead of myself, but one of the I just wanted to mention this as we're getting underway, that we have a passion for guiding you and really uncovering some of this stuff that you're not being told, and that you won't find on the first, second, third, or fifth page of Google when you GTS it, either GTS standing for Google that stuff, or another word for S you could use there. And so with this morning sunlight, for example, this particular article that I was reading was sprouting all of the benefits, but then saying, but make sure before you go out that you put lots of sunscreen on and take a hat. Granted, that is great advice if you're going to be out in the sun all day. You want to avoid burning and everything. But we were talking about morning sunlight. And as you'll hear when I get to that, we actually want the photoreceptors. We want the sunlight actually getting onto our skin and going into the deeper layers of our skin. So they were simply repeating the dogma of make sure you go out and you put your sunscreen on. Okay? And so we're seeing vitamin D deficiencies across the world because of this fear of the sun, rather than understanding nature and the fact that we're actually meant to be getting some of that natural sun. That's a topic for another day and a little bit later, but we want to be out there to guide you really along the whole journey. So here in the Savvy team, we certainly are passionate about helping you enjoy improved health and lifestyle. So when you do connect in with our community, you'll have access to step-by-step action plans, innovative solutions, and all the guidance and support that you need to reach that high level of health and wellness and live life to the full. We have a whole range of action plans and wellness plans to help you out, but our intention is to inspire you, to motivate and guide you to whatever that high level of wellness is that you desire for you. It's about helping you in your journey. So as we're getting underway, please do understand that the information that we'll be sharing reflects our personal research and experience, and anyone else sharing in comments, for example, and is for educational purposes only, so should not be seen as medical advice. The information is general in nature, and so all individual health concerns have not been taken into account, so comments and experiences should not be interpreted as therapeutic claims or medical advice. If you have any questions as to the appropriateness of the information with regards to your own health, please discuss this with your healthcare provider. That being said, we encourage you to take self-responsibility for your own well-being and learn more on this topic and complementary medicine in general. Because, this is the whole issue that we face today, that a lot of the times your doctor may not be able to keep up with all of the research. So it's important for you to be educated. And so really look for alternative ways of looking at things. And this is why in the Wealthy and the Wise section, we're going to be talking about change your perspective, change your life. It's the same thing when we're dealing with the health and wellness side of things. We've had so many people, become a member of our community and then sort of say, well, I've been told that there's nothing that I can do to improve my health. my doc said this and my family have said this. Everyone said there's nothing that I can do. I just have to put up with it. Well, that's one perspective. But what if you at least started to stack the odds in your favor? What if we still practiced some holistic wellness philosophies? Maybe some other things in your life would improve. And so sometimes by saying, let's just take that major issue that you're facing off the table and look to improve all the other aspects of your life. And these people then find that that issue that they said no one would help, nothing could help improve, it improved anyway. So sometimes we just need to take the major thing in our life that's we're focused on and just put that aside and focus on holistic well-being. And that way we change our viewpoint and change our life. So whether it's, job stress, study stress, relationship stress, health stress, or whatever, sometimes just looking at things in a little bit of a different way makes all the difference. So again, do communicate with us in the comments as we go along, wherever you're joining us. I hopefully can see most of those comments here. So please, if you're joining live, at least give me a wave so I can see that you are here. Good to go? All right. So indeed, here in the Savvy team, we like to say that if there's something that you want to improve about your health and wellness, then we can guide you there. So look, a big congratulations for joining us. If you're joining us live, make sure you grab a cuppa and settle in, and let's have a chat about how we can help you reach that next level of health and lifestyle. All right. Time for our quick tip, I would say, and this is where we get underway with a quick tip, a savvy quick tip, and the quick tip is to get morning sunlight for better sleep and health. Get morning sunlight for better sleep and health. Quick tip, I could just say, that's all you need to do. Get some morning sunlight. Done. But I know, see, this is the thing. Many people want the information and then say, oh, that's too much information. But unless you know the why, you're probably not going to do the what, right? When you think about it, who enjoys, let us know maybe, who enjoys actually seeing a sunrise or a sunset for that matter? Who actually enjoys it from an emotional point of view, from a lifestyle point of view? Let us know. And the question for you too, whether you're joining us live or catching the replay, by the way, if you're catching the replay, let us know. Say hi so that we can know that you did swing by. Who takes the opportunity? So most people would say that they enjoy a sunrise, they enjoy a sunset, but who actually takes the opportunity to do it? Not too many people, right? We end up sleeping. And sometimes it depends on where you live. And, if you're in a city, if you're in a large city with tall buildings around, it's actually really hard. From where I'm broadcasting from, Australia here, it's very, we're very lucky, and I'm very fortunate here that I can actually see the sunrise from the place, or go down the road and look at sunrise across the water. And I know that where you're coming from, you may not have that advantage. It may be a bit of an effort to go and see the sunrise, but I'm hoping to encourage you to realize that effort may actually be really, really important for your health and well-being. So I think the problem is that we don't take the opportunity because we don't understand the benefit. So the light spectrum that happens first thing in the morning has tremendous rejuvenative and healing properties for our body. And yet, we enjoy it. We like it. We get, on a special day, we get up to see the sunrise. Or when we're traveling, we go to the special monument to see the sunrise. But we don't think about the benefit of doing that every day. And that's what I really want to encourage you to understand, that we end up spending more time staring at screens than we do the actual morning sunrise. So maybe tomorrow is the time for you to get up a little bit earlier and watch the sunrise. So why, Corey? Why should I do that? I like to sleep in. Well, for a start, it's a good time of day. It's very quiet. It's often very quiet. And it's a good time to practice a morning ritual. We have our morning ritual that you can, in fact, I think if you message the page with Wake and Be Savvy, I think that's you'll be able to access our Wake and Be Savvy morning routine. But one of the one of the parts of that is to really, to really bask. B is for bask, just to spend time in enjoying the process and the quiet. And quiet time, gratitude and appreciation at that time of day it really does help to shift your perspective and set the day up right. But science is discovering that there's a lot more to it than just our mental and emotional enjoyment of the morning. The sunlight in the morning, the spectrum of light, makes all the difference for our mood, for our well-being, and even for your sex hormones. Yes, even for hormonal balance, it's important to get that early morning red light onto your skin and into the photoreceptors in your eyes. Now, when I was chatting with Linda about this, Linda actually shared that when she was having her first children many, many years ago, they actually were recommending to get to encourage milk flow, to actually get your breasts out into the sunlight, the morning sunlight. Now, it's interesting, that's considered by modern medical thoughts to be some old wives' tale, but in actual fact, there is a lot of truth to the stimulation of prolactin and the rebalancing of hormones, and also the offsetting of the damaging effects of the exposure to blue light that we have. So science is starting to really catch up to this whole aspect of morning sunlight. So Dragisa writes in that she remembers when she was a teenager, she wanted to sleep in every weekend and she doubts she ever saw the sunrise. But she says, I wish I'd have listened to my mother, and got up. So look, hey, we're talking teen health here, and it's true that is one of the issues. So look, if you've been having trouble sleeping, then morning sunlight will reinforce your natural circadian rhythm more than anything else. Now, I've had periods where I've got up and seen the sun and then got slack as I've stayed up too late into the nighttime. I've had work, and if you have a work life like I had, where I was working late into the night in the hospitality industry, then it's not so easy for you to see the morning sunrise. So, and shift workers are going to have issues with their circadian rhythm. So all of that aside, we understand there are issues. Not everybody can really get to this natural circadian rhythm, but that's part of the problem. We often don't work with nature, and then that impacts our whole biochemistry and the well-being of our body. So if you're having trouble sleeping, certainly morning infrared sunlight exposure is really one of the best things to reset that natural body clock. And so what I've found, just doing that even recently, so I got a little bit slack and haven't been getting up and seeing the sun. I get morning sunshine, but not the sunrise, and so I've been doing that more. And what I've noticed is that certainly you reset your clock, and you sometimes can be brighter during the day. I've noticed some changes there with me, and that's not necessarily the case. But a lot of people notice their mood elevation. They notice more energy when they're doing that. And they notice that they actually are more tired at nighttime and go to sleep. And it's not just because you got up earlier. There is an actual resetting of your circadian rhythm. So you'll find that your body starts to wind down better at nighttime, provided you're not staring at bright screens and everything, because your clock has been reset by that early morning light to stimulate the waking up, the shutting down of melatonin, and the stimulation of cortisol to wake you up and get through your day. And then the opposite happens at nighttime. So it's actually resetting your circadian rhythms. And this is your normal biological process. Your circadian rhythms actually control your appetite, your energy levels, your hormone production, your whole body temperature. So, often if you're not sleeping properly and you're not doing this whole thing, you end up with, with hunger problems and all of this, and we end up overweight and all sorts of things. As human creatures, we're diurnal creatures. So we operate with the sun. So we're supposed to rise with the sun and then basically wind down when the sun goes down. And here's one of the biggest issues in medical literature. They actually use rats and mice to do a lot of the studies initially. And yet they are nocturnal creatures. That changes everything. Plus, they are covered in fur, so they don't have the same photoreceptors as us. So just start to, this is when we really start to dig deep. There's a lot of misinformation studies can show us a lot, but there's also a lot of misinformation spread by misunderstanding the differences there between us as diurnal creatures and nocturnal creatures. So unfortunately, in today's world, we're simply exposed to too much of the negative internal bright light, and at the wrong times of day, and the wrong spectrums of light. We've moved from the incandescent bulb, the Edison bulb, to LEDs emitting entirely different spectrums, and these are giving us too much toxic blue light, and this messes with the whole hormonal system of the body, let alone messing with the sleep and the wake cycle. So this will mess up our not only our melatonin production to help us sleep better. It can mess up our cortisol production, which means that we don't wake up properly and we have high levels of cortisol stressing us out at the wrong time of day. It can mess with our serotonin production, which is the happy hormone. So again, the more we can fit in with nature, the better we're going to be. So jump up in the morning. The best light is that really red light when the sun's just coming up. Now, obviously, you have photoreceptors in your eyes, so watching the sun rise is actually very beneficial. Obviously, once it's above the horizon and it's very bright, you'll notice that it's harder to look at. So, of course, you don't stare at that light. That can be damaging to your eyes. But again, letting the light into the eyes by being, looking 15 degrees around that and just looking at what's going on around makes a huge difference. And getting it onto your skin. So, ladies, that's up to you as to whether you get it on the skin here, if it's private where you can. But if you can get out in the backyard and get some sun or whatever, then that's great. Many people, I understand, won't see the sun rise where they are because they're surrounded by houses. But at least that early morning red light, once we end up with the light being more white, where the UVA is in it, you don't really want that as much. There's still a good mix in the morning, so getting out in the morning sunshine for 45 minutes or whatever to wake up as you exercise, that's really good anyway. But again, don't allow yourself to burn. So follow the Wake and Be Savvy routine. That might help. But here's what Dr. Jack Kruse, an ex-neurosurgeon, and he's a real passionate researcher in the area of light. He says that it turns out that the combination of the ultraviolet and infrared solar light that we're designed to get means that AM sunshine actually pre-treats the skin and can lower inflammation in the body. And much of the problem that we have in this day and age is rampant inflammation from our diet, from all the wrong light, and from all sorts of other exposure to chemicals. So he says that both UV and infrared light are powerful together and perfect between 8 a.m. and 10 a.m. in many places around the world. But certainly the early morning infrared light helps the body in such an amazing way. And what he's seen in his research, that the infrared light from sunrise pre-treats the body to be able to withstand daytime sunlight, and the light spectrum in the afternoons, which is totally different to the morning, actually sets up a healing process in our body to heal us from the exposure to UVA and UVB during the day. So isn't that fascinating? We're actually designed to be out in the sun and follow that natural cycle. So it's an amazing process when you really look at it. So he has followed the impact, Dr. Kruse has followed the impact of light on the eyes and the body, and he has stated that, this is what he said, the single best thing that you can do for your health and moods and life moving forward would be to get some skin in the game in the sunrise for the rest of your life. Fascinating, isn't it? So sunlight is the only form of light that actually provides your cells with the the wood for your fire, the fuel for your fire. So this is one of the things that Dr. Cruz had said, that humans are the only species bright enough to make artificial light and stupid enough to live under it. So there you have it. That's a quick tip. I know lots of additional information to encourage you to do the quick tip, but basically the quick tip was to get some morning sunlight for better sleep and health. Love this picture because, you know, some people really do just are able to get out on the water or get out and exercise and actually enjoy the morning. And we're just sort of suggesting that you get some skin in the game when you do that. So yes, Emma commenting here, giving us the glasses here. So yes, get out in the sun, indeed. So yes, Linda sharing here that when you get it is important. Early morning sunshine is the name of the game. To pre-treat your body, it's just the best time. Afternoon is good too. The red light in the afternoon, it just is a different spectrum. So again, if you can enjoy getting some skin in the game on the sunsets, do it. If morning is not possible for you, but you can do the afternoon, then do that. Okay, watch the sun set. But Dr. Cruz just said sunrise, nothing better than that. And that's certainly what I've seen from all the research in resetting your circadian rhythms. All right, I reckon it must be about time for us to move on to the next segment here. If you have just joined us for the Healthy, Wealthy, Wise show, it's Corey Sievers here, and welcome and congratulations for joining us. Let us know where you're coming in from, whether you're new here to the show. Love to know. We've just been talking about the importance of getting morning sunlight, and now we're going to move on to our fun fact segment. And our fun fact segment this time round is actually about your gut. And so we're going to share some fun facts about, you know, moving away from having a sorry gut to having more of a savvy gut. So are we ready for some fun facts here? So this is all about the gut and bacteria and all this sort of thing. So number one in our fun fact here, you are more bacteria than you are human. Our bodies contain over 100 trillion bacteria. That's 10 times more bacteria than human cells. And these bacteria in our gut and actually living all on us too, when we look at our whole holobiome, really, they do play a significant role in our health and longevity. Number two fun fact, you get your first dose of bacteria when you travel down the birth canal. And then that's amplified and fed by some of the ingredients and the prebiotics in breast milk. So, can you imagine if you are born by cesarean and you aren't breastfed, then you have a significantly not as beneficial start in life, and you can be more prone to autoimmune disorders and other illnesses. So really important. There's some evidence that babies born through cesarean do have very different makeups in their microbiome and are more susceptible to allergies and even autoimmune conditions. So number three, bacteria are not all that bad in this day and age, because of the fact that 20th century medicine was all about cleanliness and getting rid of bacteria and more of the germ theory, and we've got past that. And so, but we've learned, many people have learned that bacteria are all bad, and that's not the case. In fact, we often associate bacteria with harmful infections and all the negative things, and we need to cleanse everything, disinfect everything. And this has actually caused an imbalance in our microbiome and our general innate immunity, and this has then caused issues with our long-term health and well-being. So, kids are meant to crawl around on the ground and actually build up their immune system by the fact that they eat dirt, pick up everything, stick everything in their mouth. That's all part of the process. And as good parents, I know I'm not a parent, but as good parents, you make sure that you don't get any germs into your precious child because you want them to be healthy. Well, it turns out that we've been led astray as far as that information goes, and that stops them from developing their immune system and the natural microbiome that would happen by doing all those sorts of things. So now everybody's onto soil-based organisms to try to get more bacteria in, when we would have had a natural microbiome if we'd have let the process develop. So not all bacteria are bad. Most bacteria in our guts are beneficial and perform many functions like boosting our immune system, communicating with our brain, and aiding in the digestion of food. And if you've done some of our other masterclasses, you'll know that I've talked about the fact that your microbiome, all the bacteria in your gut, actually have an ability to communicate with your mitochondria, the inner powerhouses of your cell. And if we really go right back, they're like a sisterhood. That they're in control of us. We're not just like a bag of bones that they're actually living in. So that I think the kids movie, there's a kids movie where I don't remember the name, anyway, where they sort of show that it's like these cells driving you around and everything. It's probably more true than we actually realize. So number 4 is antibiotics can increase your risk of obesity and numerous health issues if overused, especially in childhood. And this is the problem. I know as a kid, I was sick all the time, tonsillitis, constant flus, and so I was on. And this is back when the doctors would just give you a antibiotic for anything, even a virus that they now know was the wrong thing to do. So I was on antibiotics constantly. That would have ruined my gut microbiome. That led to skin problems, etc., etc. We'll talk more about that later. But a study published in the International Journal of Obesity suggests that the use of antibiotics in the first 6 months of life, when our gut microbiomes are being developed at a fast rate, will lead, chances are leading to an increased body mass throughout the rest of our life. If you don't get the bugs in the early stages and you have antibiotics, you're more likely to be obese later in life because you developed the wrong microbiome. Fascinating. Now, obviously, there's not much we can do, and we can't blame our parents. They did the best that they knew following the advice that they were given, but to put you on antibiotics and all that sort of thing. But it's about taking control from now. So please do not think that I'm casting any aspersions on how you brought up your children or any of that sort of thing. We all do the best that we know how at the time. And that's what I was talking about with Googling stuff. Unfortunately, we're still in the 20th century germ theory at the moment, and we're now seeing many doctors are actually sort of fearful of the fact that we're creating superbugs through the overprescription of antibiotics. So they know it. Experts know this. Experts in the area of microbiology and the microbiome know this. Whether that's filtered down to the average person prescribing the antibiotic is another thing. And I'm certainly not an expert, but I'm just reporting the news from many doctors. All right, number 5, obese individuals have different bacteria than lean people. So twins, both lean and obese, were tested to look at the differences in their gut bacteria. Researchers found that there was a difference in over 300 different bacterial genes compared from obese to lean. So, and many of these genes are responsible really for and many of the bacteria responsible for our carbohydrate and fat metabolism. So, in other words, if you struggle with your weight and everything, maybe it's not your fault. Maybe it's those dang bugs inside you, and we've got to re-educate them to start to, and kick out the unwanted guys, bring in the new ones. So number 6 is everyone has a unique gut microbiome. Studies have been done to determine if certain diets, like for example the Mediterranean diet and other whole food diets, can influence the gut microbiome. Researchers have discovered that every person that they tested had a unique microbiome, like a unique fingerprint. No two people have the same bacterial profile. So your gut is unique to you, just like your fingerprint. Number 7, there's a connection between your gut and your immune system. So bacteria in the gut play many supporting roles in the immune system. Studies at Johns Hopkins have shown that certain cells in the lining of your gut actually secrete antibodies, and that the colon problems seem to stem from an interaction with the microbiome. So the immune system communicating with the lining of your gut. This can trigger all sorts of different issues, but gut problems and colon problems are just one of those things. Eating good food and taking nutritional supplements that feed your gut bacteria, this is number 8, is just as important as taking a probiotic. So many people sort of think that, they'll just take a pill to fix their ills, but it's no substitute for healthy eating and feeding the gut microbiome. Now, I'm a big believer in probiotic supplements to gain control of the bad bacteria. So if we're like our mates here, our what we call our sorry gut versus savvy gut, then obviously, if we have a sorry gut going on, we need to start to kick out some of the the pathogens and the viruses and the candida and the parasites and all that sort of thing. By doing a parasite purge, we can help you out in that area, those sorts of things. But more importantly, we need to sort of rebuild. So it's often the weed, seed, and feed. We do that with our lawn in springtime, but we don't think about our poor old gut. We need to weed, seed, and feed that come springtime as well. So the problem with thinking that I'll just take a probiotic after antibiotics, for example, is that there's only a limited array of microorganisms in a probiotic supplement. And so just taking a probiotic doesn't restore our natural fingerprint and the natural protective microbiome that's inside us. So what we need to do is we can take control with probiotics, for example, but then we need to rebuild the natural fingerprint, the natural microbiome over time by doing what we can to avoid antibiotics. Obviously, antibiotics can be life-saving, but a lot of the times they're overprescribed and overused for things that they didn't really need to be. I have the cold, I have a flu, and I have this infection, and if I go on antibiotics, it might pass in 5 days instead of 6. Like often they have actually done studies on this, and there may be 1 or 2, maybe 48 hours difference between how long it took your body to get on top of the infection versus when you had antibiotics or not. So when you understand the damaging effect that it'll have on your microbiome long term, it's in my opinion, it's not worth it if you can avoid the antibiotics. Okay. So number 9 is balancing your gut with probiotics and prebiotics can actually help with depression and anxiety. So this goes back to the fact that our guts and our brains are in constant communication via what they call the enteric nervous system. And so therefore, our gut health has more of a significant effect on our ability to combat stress and affect our positive mood and outlook on life and even our whole mental well-being. So number 10, last tip, is your gut is always communicating with your body. It's in constant communication. And this is what I meant by the enteric nervous system. They discovered that there are more, originally the theory was that the brain controlled through the nerves everything in our body. So our brain was controlling our gut. And then they found that there were more connections going from the gut to the brain than were going from the brain down to the gut. And so scientists started to say, well, that's interesting. What is that about? And it means that our brain is receiving feedback on the world from our gut. So there's more going on there. And when we really think about it, we have our senses. We're receiving inputs from all of our senses. Our skin is like exposed to the outside world. And we think of our gut as being inside us. When if you really think of it as a hollow tube and the food's passing through us, our gut is more outside of the cells of our body in essence than it is inside. So therefore, that is a readout for the outside world as well. Fascinating stuff when you really understand that there's more going on than we realize. So the good news is that your gut microbiome responds quickly to a better diet. We encourage you to follow the Eat Savvy diet. It's designed really to optimize the things that will feed the microbiome, lessen the things that will impact the microbiome and all the other cells in your body. Exercise actually stimulates the change in the microbiome. Supplementation, body-mind practices actually all have small impacts to change our microbiome. So there you have some fun facts on creating a healthier gut. So welcome. If you've just joined us for the Healthy, Wealthy, Wise show, then congratulations. Great to have you with us here. I'm just checking out the comments to see what's been going on here. Thanks for the positive comments. So Paul writes in, funny diagram. I think that was on the bow there. Yep. Savvy gut versus a sorry gut. Highlander. Yes, Paul saying... Okay, thanks, Paul. Thanks for all the positive comments. Awesome. All right, must be time for us to delve on into the topic of savvy teens. Tips for a healthy body and a healthy life. So it doesn't matter whether you're a parent or a grandparent, a guardian, or whether you are a teen yourself listening into this. I really hope that this information will make a difference to understanding how your body functions and how you can optimize things for the best, your best potential in life. Now, we actually do have a masterclass and a free web class on our Smart Kids, Healthy Kids philosophy, really, where in essence we deal with some different age groups, and we're not going to be going into that, but in essence, in that particular class, we deal with 4 key age groups, obviously, baby to toddler, preschool years, primary school years, and then adolescent and teenage years. And that's really more what we're dealing with today, the teen years. But do understand that we have that information. If you have younger children and everything, you might want to touch base and look out for that info. And in the Smart Kids, Healthy Kids, which this is still important for teens as well, but we cover these issues: skin issues, behavior and learning, poor immunity, digestive disturbances, scholastic success, and general preventative health. So since we're going to be dealing with adolescent years, we're going to be dealing with slightly different, a bit of a slightly different focus in that area. And so we're going to just talk about really the top issues for teens aged 15 to 19. Now, obviously, much of this information is still relevant to any teenager, and even younger nowadays. So adolescents and teens, obviously 13 to 19, but there are different, obviously there's a lot that goes on during those times, and older teens might be more susceptible to stress than younger teens and these sorts of things. But they actually did some studies. Mission Australia actually did some studies looking at the top issues for young people aged 15 to 19. They asked about their values, their concerns, those sorts of things. And so we're going to go through a little bit of a summary of that and look at the issues that were discovered from the research and the surveys, and then look at how that relates to what we can do to optimize the health and help teens deal with the things that they're dealing with. So what the survey did is they looked at, they asked young people how much they valued family relationships, financial security, getting a job, mental health, physical health, school, study, and all those sorts of things. And this is what they actually found. So there were the 3 most highly valued items, really. So 3 most highly valued items for teens were family relationships. So it doesn't matter what your teens are telling you. Go away, mum, go away, dad. They valued, 83% of respondents said that they valued the family relationship. Number 2, friendships other than family. 81% of respondents valued that the most. And number 3 was school and study satisfaction, so 71%. And the next most valued things were health and physical health. So that's what we're really going to be dealing with. That obviously we're not going to be talking about family relationships and friendships, but school and study satisfaction, and then that was impacted by health and ability to cope with stress were some of the things later on. So mental health and physical health. So that's why we're dealing with some of those things. So the top 5 issues that were of concern. So these are the top 5 issues that were of concern to young people 15 to 19, And so some of these issues are equally concerning, I believe, to the younger teens, but obviously it's sort of skewed more to this is where 15 to 19 is where teens can get a lot busier and be coping with a lot more stresses, as you'll understand as we go through. So the number one issue of the top 5 concerns for young people was coping with stress. Young people were extremely concerned about their ability to cope with the stresses of life. So 43% were concerned with that. Number two concern for young people 15 to 19, according to Mission Australia, was actually school and study problems. Being able to deal with coping at school. Obviously, that everything from peer pressure to scholastic success. So we're going to touch on the scholastic success issue there. Number 3 was mental health awareness. Everything from stress and ability to cope, dealing with depression and moods, all of those sorts of things. That was the number 3 top concern for young people. Number 4 was body image, and this was mostly for girls, but across the board, body image. And so in body image, we can deal with things such as obesity and skin problems. And so we're going to delve into a bit of skin issues and those sorts of things related to that. And then physical health. Young people were concerned. The 5th most important thing that they were concerned about is their general physical health. So, the study also looked at how happy were young people. And so young people were asked to rate how happy they were generally. And so most young people did say that they were either very happy or happy. Now, nearly 30% said that they were not happy or sad. So that's a shame. When you're in your developing years and everything, they were not happy or sad. And 10% identified themselves as very sad. So there were more of the boys reported feeling happy or very happy with their lives than females, and that's interesting. And maybe that's all part of, again, peer pressure and body image and that sort of thing. But despite more males reporting feeling happier, they learned that male suicide was 3 times worse than previously thought. So, look, we certainly do have some issues in this particular area. And so what we're going to really delve into is these 5 key focus areas from that sort of information. We're going to look at coping with stress, scholastic success. We're going to deal with skin and body issues, sleep disturbances, and general and physical health. So really looking at coping with stress first of all. Stress obviously stress occurs when the demands that you perceive, such as work, school, relationships, exceed your ability to cope. So it's a subjective thing in a lot of ways. But number 1 was coping with stress. The number 1 issue was coping with stress. So 43% of young people, 43.1%, were extremely concerned or very concerned about their ability to cope with stress. Now, we know that stress can be beneficial. Obviously, there's positive stress, but if we get too much of it, positive stress helps us to get the deadlines done and move on things and all that sort of thing. But if we have too much, then this affects our immune system, it affects our endocrine system, it affects our central nervous system, it affects our emotions and all that sort of thing. So obviously untreated chronic stress then leads to things such as anxiety and insomnia and blood pressure disturbances and a weakened immune system, those sorts of things. So finding positive, healthy ways to deal with the stress is really important. And one of the challenges is for young people is that they haven't necessarily yet developed some of those coping mechanisms. So, and that's not part of the educational process, unfortunately, in school. Just like they don't teach finances in school, they don't really teach emotional coping strategies in school either. So one of the things that's important, whether you're a teen that happens to be watching this or an interested parent, food and drink, what you consume really does have an impact on moods, okay? Australian teens are also, that's one of the things we're dealing with. Australian teens are facing an estimated 3-hour sleep deficit. And that's going to mess with your mental and physical abilities, and certainly your ability to cope with stress. And teens are finding it harder and harder to actually get active. The World Health Organization said that 80% of teens worldwide are not getting enough physical activity. So it's interesting, isn't it? When, our stress actually, our bodies regulate stress through what's called our hypothalamic pituitary adrenaline axis, the HPA axis, and obviously there's an interplay between hormones such as cortisol, noradrenaline, all of these sorts of things. But the challenge is when we're under chronic stress, then much of these sort of perceived threats means that this switch stays on and doesn't get switched off. So obviously the fight or flight response meant that we had a stress, it triggered us into action, and then the switch flicks off. And the issue is this HPA switch, this hypothalamic pituitary adrenaline axis, is kept on, and this has a toxic effect on our body over the long term and can damage our physiological and emotional well-being, really. So they actually did, back in 2010, they did a study of 13 to 14-year-olds, and they said they found, well, in the study, they did study from 13 to 17, they found that 43% of 13 and 14-year-olds said that they were stressed every day. By the age of 15 to 17, it was found that 59% of these teens were stressed every day and had trouble being able to deal with the impact of stress on their life. Now, this is a big issue because as teenagers, the prefrontal cortex is still sort of developing, and they're sort of struggling to deal with self-control, regulation, and ability to stay on track, and the stress just sort of messes that whole process up. So they're experiencing stress during a development period, which throws off their ability to cope and even to develop. So a young teenager needs really good mental health to properly develop in a healthy way, build strong relationships, develop their ability to cope with and deal with challenges. And the survey sort of uncovered that they do believe that a strong, healthy family relationship is important in the whole process of developing. And it was interesting that students did say that that was one of their number one interests, in having a strong, healthy relationship amongst the family. But they also have uncovered, studies have also uncovered, that physical health is important to mental health. And we discussed that the microbiome, in the fun facts, that the microbiome can be messed up, and that can trigger our emotional changes as well. And I do assert that many teenagers are dealing with a messed up microbiome, and that's also impacting their moods, their depression, their anxiety, their ability to cope with stress. When we throw in not sleeping well and venturing into drugs and alcohol, then we can see that coping with stress becomes a real primary issue, because we're throwing off the natural balance of the body. And then we throw that teens are exposed to blue light, and we talk about the impact of sun. What teen gets up and sees the sunrise, like we were talking about in the quick tip? Instead, they're staring at the blue light, and that is also interrupting the circadian biology and causing a mismatch in circadian biology and our ability to deal with stress. So what can we do to cope with stress? Well, really we see that there are three primary areas that really help. Number one is obviously changing the circadian biology, really getting healthy sun, being active, doing that sort of thing, limiting blue light exposure. All of this really helps. But from a nutritional point of view, trace mineral lack is a big one. So many teens are deficient in magnesium, they're deficient in a whole range of trace minerals, and B vitamins as well. And so that elevates stress levels, because if you're deficient in these minerals, then you're going to be more jacked up and stressed and all that sort of thing. And B vitamins help the ability to cope as well. And most teens haven't started supplementation, so they're relying upon the diet to get that. So also plenty of healthy fats. Following the Eat Savvy approach is just great for teens. So too much of the wrong fats, also like all the omega-6 vegetable oils and the seed oils and everything, the wrong fats can trigger inflammation, which is an issue, not only for the gut, but also for brain function. I'll cover that a bit later on. But we want to optimize omega-3, so the supplementation like krill oils and fish oils, which is what we use here in the Savvy team, but also more of the fish types of foods, oily fish, sardines, and those sorts of things, which often are not what kids tend to eat, what teenagers tend to eat. And that's partially because they didn't develop the taste for that in the younger years. We see that antioxidants really do make really help. Vitamins help. I mentioned before, multivitamin can make a huge difference to students and their ability to cope. It's just not worthwhile with dietary and insufficiencies and everything just not to supplement. We just find that most of our community members that have kids, parents, teenagers and everything, they just do better when they supplement with at least trace minerals and a multivitamin. But antioxidants can really help the ability to cope and deal with chemical onslaught too, which more and more teenagers are exposed to nowadays. There are some liver support can help too, because if you're not coping with stress, there's the old saying of a bit of SOL, stuff on the liver. I won't swear here, but stuff on the liver, and being liverish. So mood problems and stress can eventuate because of the poor diet and a liver overload. So many teenagers are actually suffering from liver stress, and that's causing to be irritable and moody and all that sort of thing. So some liver support herbs can make a huge difference. And then we can move on to some specific herbs which do help the brain and the nervous system with stress. We use a different blend of herbs, such as things such as for stress. We're talking more like valerian and lactium and B vitamins and these sorts of things to help with stress, St. John's wort. But that's more usually for the older teens when it's extreme. We don't tend to recommend those sorts of things for younger teens. You can usually offset that with general nutrition and a proper diet and maybe just general relaxation techniques. But there are some other things that can help in the short and the long term. Take a break from the stress. Sometimes when we're really embedded in the difficult project or an exam coming up or whatever, we can just feel like spending more time on it will help, whereas sometimes getting a little bit of a break from that can make a difference. Exercise, there's growing evidence that exercise really makes a difference. So just getting out for a walk, doing other things like sport makes a huge difference to the ability to cope with stress. Just practicing more smile and laughter types of techniques, getting social support, texting a friend, that sort of thing can really make a difference. And there's a lot of research even at Harvard looking at getting kids to start meditating, or at least practicing some simple mindfulness exercises, or at least writing down positive aspects of their life. So rather than getting too focused on the negative things and the stress, it's sort of saying, what's the good things going on in my life? And by becoming more focused, which is what we're dealing with in the Wealthy and Wise section of the show, the getting a new perspective on life, they're more likely to be able to write down the positive aspects, and that relieves the stress because they realize that there are some good things going on in their life. So that's coping with stress, some different tips there for you. Let's look at scholastic success. So remember in the survey, the number 2 issue that students raised were school and study problems. Of the top 5 things they were concerned about, number 2 was school and study problems. So let's look at scholastic success. One of the biggest issues that it seems that kids are facing is tiredness and lack of concentration. Now that's actually linked to something we'll talk about later on in sleep disturbance, but the brain is one of the most energy-hungry organs in your entire body, and certainly your diet and lifestyle affects how well it works. And, diet has an indirect relationship to brain health via inflammatory pathways, really. So gut health is important, blood sugar regulation is important, and, inflammation, like, it doesn't matter whether we're a student trying to study or whether you're trying to avoid Alzheimer's, inflammation is the big issue here in our bodies. And so the brain goes through coping mechanisms that that it hopes you'll solve in the short term, not the long term. And so we really do want to do what we can to reduce inflammation. So gut health will make a huge difference to reduce overall inflammation. Blood sugar control will make a huge difference as well. So when we look at the whole inflammation connection, diet certainly will turn that down, and then that has a flow-on effect to general brain health. But inflammation is a normal physiological response to stress or injury or whatever, but it's the long-term issue that's the problem. So, that if you get a splinter in your finger, that inflammation is there in the short term, but if you just kept sticking splinters in there and your whole finger got red and inflamed, then you're not going to be able to write, pick up a pen, or do any of that sort of thing. And so it's the same thing with our body. If we don't have inflammation as a normal response, but if we're suffering from chronic inflammation through poor diet, too much stress, overexposure to all the wrong sorts of light and all that sort of thing, then we can end up with problems. And this is what we're seeing in the problem for scholastic success. So diet is one of the fundamental things to start with, really, to calm the inflammation. Inflammatory foods. Why? Well, inflammatory foods are things such as sugar and the seed oils and grains, trans fats, all of these gut irritants. And many kids today now are gluten intolerant, so they're off gluten and onto other inflammatory grains, okay? And they're not necessarily, a lot of the gluten-free items still have soy oil and other inflammatory oils like canola oil or trans fats and those sorts of things. So these are still triggering inflammation. Plus, teens tend to eat more of the packaged food, which is loaded with chemicals and artificial flavors and all that sort of thing, which are all inflammatory. And some of them are even being tested as crossing the blood-brain barrier, which is a problematic thing. So this can directly impact the brain. So whereas anti-inflammatory foods are the whole foods, vegetables, some of the low-sugar fruits, seafood, fish, sardines, all low, inflammation calming. And when you lower inflammation, it really can have a very dramatic effect on the brain. So certainly a number of studies they've done with mental illness and brain inflammation. Obviously, brain inflammation is linked to dementia and Alzheimer's. And so, we think of that as only a long-term problem that we need to solve, but what's happening to the brain in the short term? And this is where much of the foggy thinking and the lack of concentration and the inability to focus and all of this that many students suffer from has been linked to rampant inflammation in the body. So if we can calm the inflammation down, then we're going to be better off at being able to intake information and study. So they did a bit of a meta-analysis of a whole bunch of studies, and they found that inflammation is also directly linked to why people don't respond to some depression treatments. It's linked to psychological stress and mental illness in studies, and certainly it's linked to things such as stroke and major mental illness as well. So we've got to start to really look at what are the things that are causing this interplay, and this is where we come back to the gut-brain connection. So if we can calm the inflammation inside the gut, then because of the gut-brain communication running and the interplay with what's called the vagus nerve, anytime that we can really calm the gut down, then we can actually help the brain cope. And so if you've got gut inflammation and gut problems, irritable bowel, Crohn's disease, ulcerative colitis, any of these things going on in the gut, then get ready for some brain inflammation as well and an inability to focus, let alone just the symptoms that mess up your ability to focus with your studies and all that sort of thing. It's just so important. So studies show that about half of all patients with irritable bowel syndrome also have mood disorders. Again, the gut-brain connection. So Hippocrates said disease begins in the gut. So that's why you hear us here in the Savvy team talking a lot about the gut. Let's rebuild the gut and the rest will heal. And look, there are a lot of organizations out there that promote gut health and don't even know what they mean. They focus on the villi being damaged and all these sorts of things. They don't really get that there's a lot more going on than that sort of stuff. And whereas here in the Savvy team, because of we've put together the diet and have a holistic wellness philosophy, we really can help you reach that high level of wellness. So obviously, short story, Gut health impacts your mental health. There's lots of other things that I mentioned before that impact with your ability to cope with stress and scholastic success. If you deal with the stress, you're going to have better ability to study as well. But all of the things like exercise, avoiding all the irritants, getting enough sleep, important. But as I said before, the brain is a bit of a nutrient hog. And so, about when you think about it, your brain makes up about 2% of your overall body mass, yet it chews up about 20% of the calories that you consume. And it's pretty demanding on all of the nutrients as well, such as things like I mentioned, B vitamins for stress and trace minerals and omega-3 fats and cholesterol, those sorts of things. So if your brain's not getting enough trace minerals such as iron, it's I guess it's prone to throw a bit of a hissy fit and end up with sort of fatigue and all that sort of thing. So omega-3 fats, supplementing, krill oil, fish oils, more sardines, really good for teens. Also helps the production of serotonin, which is an important neurotransmitter for mood. So fish, seafood, flax, walnuts, those sorts of things. But we encourage supplementation for students. It's just not worth the effort to make sure that the diet's perfect. Krill oil supplements every day make such a huge difference. Again, quality matters as well. Blending it up with other things that help to balance of 3, 6, and 9 by mixing in things. We use a blend that has cranberry and other oils in there as well, evening primrose, that sort of thing, to balance up and make a perfect combo of 3, 6, and 9. You may have heard that we have too much of the omega-6 oils in our life. Yes, but omega-6 is a good oil. What happens is we have too much of the inflammatory omega-6. So we want to reduce that, but we don't want to say that we don't want any omega-6. We want a good blend, and so we want a good blend of the good stuff. B vitamins make a huge difference too, so we just believe that supplementation makes sense. But of course, you get B vitamins from things such as any kind of meat, animal foods, organ meat especially, but what kids really eat organ meats? Train them up if you can, but nutritional yeasts can be a good way as well. But then again, many children today and teens are inflamed, and so nutritional yeasts can be inflammatory and trigger allergies. So you just have to test that. But nutritional yeasts, good way of getting that. But again, supplementation just makes sense. Minerals, iron, selenium, magnesium, all important for brain health. Mineral deficiency is one of the biggest causes of brain fog we have seen, and fatigue as well. Magnesium is also important for managing stress. Selenium is important for reducing oxidative stress and protecting the brain from those inflammatory disorders. So again, you can't hunt this mineral here and this mineral here. That's why we just say broad spectrum trace mineral liquid plant-based supplements just makes sense. And then we can eat a good diet, but we've already taken care of the basics. So obviously red meat, good source of nutrients. Plant sources aren't as good for mineral balance. Yes, we want lots of plants. But when we're dealing with iron, many kids are actually deficient. Selenium, Brazil nuts, fish, seafood, asparagus, those sorts of things. Magnesium, almonds, spinach, avocados, those sorts of things. So a varied whole food diet will really help. But when there's a lot of demands on the brain through study, I just believe that supplementation just makes sense. Another thing that is an issue here is fat and cholesterol. Fat's been demonized a lot in the last decades, and yet fat's so important for regulating mood and having the brain actually develop. And so that's a developmental time, and yet many teens are only being exposed to inflammatory seed oils and none of the really healthy fats. So really, really important there. So egg yolks, even meats, organ meats, all really, really important there. And this is unfortunate because of the look. If you've chosen to be vegan or vegetarian, then I understand that's a great. That's up to you to choose. I don't feel my research says that it's not ideal for young developing minds, and yet that's when a lot of people choose to enter into the vegan lifestyle and everything. And this can impact brain development. Yes, a lot of people can feel better because it removes the inflammatory things a lot of the times by going vegan. But unfortunately, it also removes some of the other beneficial nutrients that are, and the fat-soluble vitamins and all of that, that are in more of the animal food. So again, if you're making a spiritual or some sort of a cruelty-free focus, then that's up to you. I just haven't seen research that shows multi-generational impact, a positive impact, by being off animal products. And certainly I've seen it's not good necessarily for reproductive health and hormonal health to go off animal products. We do believe in the Savvy team that plant-based, meaning most of what you're eating should be plants, but not necessarily only plants. But we covered a lot of that in the Eat Savvy Diet Masterclass. So another thing that's really important for understanding the brain function and scholastic health is blood sugar and brain health as well. So regulating blood sugar, I know for myself that I believe this was part of the problem. I did not have control of my blood sugar when I was a teen, and so it was up and down, going from foggy thinking to clarity, and that was probably because my liver and my gut had been messed up from antibiotics. And so that did impact my ability to cope with that. I probably ate too many carbs, like many kids do. So high blood sugar is really pretty bad for your brain. It's obviously linked to, obviously diabetes can lead to diabetes, but people with diabetes have worse memory and lower cognitive skills. Did you know that? And so again, you can't find a much faster way of declining brain function than ending up with blood sugar imbalance. Look, that's a reason why they call Alzheimer's type 3 diabetes. So again, moving more towards whole food diet, traditional cuisine, that involves more of the bone broths and whole foods and meats and all that sort of thing, will really be a lot more brain friendly. If there's a lot of issues with neurodegeneration or things such as epilepsy and that sort of thing, that's where more of a high-fat ketogenic approach can be really, really helpful. Even ADD, it can just switch off symptoms of epilepsy and ADD by going more ketogenic. But for most students, we don't recommend that sort of thing. And again, I'm not a doctor. I'm an interested researcher. I report the news of many physicians and researchers. And so, obviously you have to talk with your doctor about that. But understand that some of this dietary philosophy and reducing inflammation is counter the typical eat lots of healthy whole grains and polyunsaturated vegetable oils. They're the inflammatory things that actually mess with brain health and mess with your microbiome according to the latest research, not the dogma. So it definitely you can make a big impact on your ability to succeed in school by optimizing your diet, getting plenty of trace minerals, getting those B vitamins, getting good fats into your diet. Seriously though, supplementing with trace minerals would be probably one of the first things that would make a huge difference in scholastic success. Okay, there are some herbs that can be beneficial during times of study for the older teens, such as Bacapa and Gotcha Cola and Ginkgo biloba and these sorts of things. But we sort of only recommend that for the latter years of school and during intense exam periods and everything to sort of spark up the brain. Then it's best just to drop back onto good nutrition and good fats for the general building of the brain and only use the herbs when needed. So that was scholastic success. Let's look at some skin and body issues. So in the 5 top things that disturbed teens, body image was number 4. And it was things like weight and skin issues, obviously like acne. Now, here are the 3 primary things that we have seen for skin issues. Chemicals. You've got to turn off the chemical sources. This is what goes onto your skin, what's used in the home, it's what's in the diet. This is one of the biggest triggers for skin issues, whether it be acne, not so much for acne, but, again, a lot of young kids have suffered with dermatitis and rosacea and psoriasis and these sorts of things. And these can be triggered by the diet and by chemicals. So number 2 is food intolerances. So really not dealing with those food intolerances, being on too many grains and even dairy can sometimes trigger these sorts of skin breakouts. So, one of the troublesome times is that in your teen years, you don't want to be perfect with your diet. Your friends are eating all sorts of things, and yet a lot of the times it's the poor diet that is triggering the skin problems. And if you just really gave it a chance to be on a good diet, you'd feel better, you'd get better results in school, and your skin problems would clear up. I know now, looking back at my skin problems and the acne that I suffered from, that I needed to clean up my diet. Now, I had a pretty good diet from a general standard, the way I was brought up. My family didn't like a lot of processed foods and all that sort of thing. Just because of their backgrounds and all that sort of stuff. But nevertheless, I probably ate too much sugar. I got into cooking, would make sweets and all that sort of thing during those years. That's where I started to do all sorts of things like that. So I was probably having too much sugar and a bit of artificial stuff slipping in there too, and eating away, doing with friends, all the sorts of things there can really mess with things. Give us too many of the chemicals as well as too many of the foods that we're intolerant to. The liver, cleaning up your liver if you're suffering from skin problems, makes a huge difference. Probiotics, everything to do with sealing and healing the gut, looking at it as if you've got a leaky gut. If you're suffering from skin problems, then you'll want to clear that up. Things like collagens, bone broth, bovine colostrum. We put together like a gut healing trio for clients that help to soothe the gut. And this makes a huge difference for skin problems for many teens. So look, again, in the girls in the survey said that body image and weight was an issue, and this is one of the issues that we're dealing with, really, that most people don't see, or many teens don't realize what's actually triggering the weight gain. And so we need to really look at more of the same thing that impacts our brain health, reduces our stress, will also help us to cope with a general life and reaching a better weight. Focusing on real, whole, unprocessed foods, the things that your grandmother would have eaten, perhaps. The plate being mostly vegetables and low-sugar fruits, avocados, seeds, wild-caught seafood, whole meats. If you are vegan or vegetarian, then properly prepared plant-based proteins, such as legumes and everything, but not just your typical things. Pressure cooking and properly preparing your own things. Some grains like millet can really make a difference. But eliminating sugar and all of the food additives would be a really big thing if you're suffering from skin and body issues. Gut supporting foods, all of the gut supporting foods, like most studies show that pretty much few teens and most people suffering from obesity rarely eat any of the natural gut microbiome feeding things. They rarely eat fermented foods, those sorts of things. They eat the things that feed the bad bugs rather than the good bugs. So more fermented foods, more of the sauerkraut, kimchi, those sorts of things, more of the prebiotic fibers, starches, such as sweet potatoes rather than potatoes. All these sorts of things can make a huge difference. But if you basically want an easy cheat sheet, follow the Eat Savvy diet. It's good for the whole family, and certainly if you're a student, it's going to help to really optimize your overall well-being, reduce inflammation, possibly reduce your stress levels, and improve your ability to concentrate as well. So you're going to want to reduce inflammation if you're suffering from skin problems. So again, all the things that I mentioned before, getting rid of the inflammatory oils, more omega-6, more of the krill, that will help. Getting better sleep, managing your stress levels, all can make a huge difference to reducing skin issues, losing weight, that sort of thing. But primary, get rid of the chemicals in your diet and on your skin. Optimize your liver function and your gut function. Change your diet. That's going to make a huge difference. We've seen people just giving you a look here at just one example from the community here. Long-term acne, scarring, and infected skin. After trying so many different things, including medication, we've finally had some sustained success in healing my son's skin problems. And this is from a holistic approach and some safe external products as well. So again, many people try all sorts of different things and they don't end up getting results. And it's just that we really do need to focus more on a holistic well-being approach. I know myself, I tried all the different things my parents tried things, took me to the dermatologist, all that. I ended up on long-term antibiotics and then ended up on, it was called Roaccutane at the time, or Accutane. That does nasty things for the liver and the gut. And the truth is, it was probably my liver and the gut that were my issue that was causing the skin problems. And so that only made things worse in the long run. So if you can manage to tackle things holistically, you're just going to be better off. All right, sleep disturbances is our next one. And, Australian teens are apparently sleep deprived. So, and as teens gain more independence, often there's a busier life, there's more outside of the home endeavors, sporting endeavors, after school curriculum and that sort of thing. And it seems as though teens are suffering from a sleep deficit. According to the Victorian state government, teens need 9 to 10 hours of sleep per night, which is more than adults and more than children. I mean, younger children. So the stereotypical thing is that teens seem to sleep extra long, sleep in late, and yet it turns out that from a brain development point of view, they're not lazy, they actually need the sleep. And so getting good quality sleep can make a huge difference for the health of your teens, and at any age, but certainly teenage health. It turns out that 8 to 10 hours a night is pretty much what studies have shown that teens need to be fully rested the next day. And that's out without looking at some of the other ability to cope with stress, scholastic success, all of that sort of thing. So sleep obviously allows your brain to rest and recover and process the day's information. Sleep allows you to release all of the growth hormones and things that are really important for repairing and growing the body. So without enough sleep, it's going to impair proper function of all aspects of the body. And from an emotional point of view, you're going to feel sluggish, cranky, low energy, those sorts of things. Find it harder to concentrate. Your immune system's going to be impacted. All of these sorts of things. So sleep is pretty important. And it turns out that the stats show that Aussies, and I think this would be the same wherever you might be watching this from. I know we have community members all around the world and certainly people following us all around the world. But 6.5 hours to 7.5 hours a night is around about what the average Aussie teen is getting. So, yep, that's about a 3-hour sleep deficit per night on average. So what can we do to improve sleep? Well, working with your body, we have some other sleep tips that you can look out for on the blog, but work with your body, not against it. Again, getting into that circadian rhythm can really, really help. Getting out and being active during the day, getting some sunshine, getting into a regular sleep-wake schedule will make a huge difference to you as a teen, or if you're a parent here watching, obviously to your teen. Number 2 is to separate screen time and sleep time. Really be careful with the exposure to the devices late into the night. So teens will often be on the device until it's time to go to bed, leave the device on through the night, and then pick it back up again first thing in the morning. We would encourage you to use the bedtime app to tone the screen color down, and also to make sure that it goes to airplane mode during sleep time. Okay, because you don't want a transmitting device anywhere near your head. And so that many of you adults, we're talking teens here, but chances are many of you have a transmitting device next to your head on your bedside table or whatever, and that's not going to be good for your sleep or for your general well-being. So separate screen time and sleep time. Get more trace minerals. Supplement with trace minerals will really make the biggest difference to your ability to get good sleep. So thanks for all the positive comments. If stress and that's a problem, then obviously to some of the stress relieving nutrients can really help to get to sleep. Looking at general physical health, 25.7% of young people were extremely concerned or very concerned about their physical health. Now, remember, we've already said that the teens aren't sleeping enough. This is impacting their ability to learn and develop. But again, inability to develop means that we can, or cope means that we end up eating the wrong foods, and we set up bad habits, really coping mechanisms, turning to food and all that sort of thing, and this can have poor long-term effects. But not managing the diet can, during the growing teen years, to get optimal nutrition for the brain, the energy-hungry brain and the body, can set up deficiencies later on that can lead to more obesity, more osteoporosis, more problems with sexual maturation, adult height, proper brain development, all of these sorts of things. So deficiency is really, really a big issue for teens. Up to 13% of teenage boys and girls were both found to have low iron stores. That's not particularly good. Obviously, teenage girls need iron. They're starting their menstrual cycle, and so if they're already iron deficient, then that's only going to get worse. We're seeing a lot, as I mentioned there, about internet and smartphone risks. Obviously, boys in particular love their electronics, video games, surfing, texting friends, all that sort of thing. And new studies are showing that mobile phone radiation can impair the memory in teens. And that's the thing. Obviously, using it's one thing, but making sure that it's off in the nighttime, really, really important. So radiation from mobile phones can affect the brains in teenagers from their memory performance point of view. In fact, a particular study of nearly 700 Swiss teenagers confirmed that that there was a dramatic impact in the actual the impact of memory and cognitive ability. So also there was an impact on even ADHD and all that sort of thing. And so for boys, obviously ADHD and ADD is more common in boys than girls. Most boys, we're talking teens here, but most of the time boys are diagnosed with ADD in the more primary school years. But some of the older boys, they're a teen before it's actually identified, and this is also linked with learning difficulties and depression and behavioral issues and all that sort of thing. And a lot of that's still triggered again by what we've mentioned before: bad microbiome, a poor diet, too much of the stresses, chemical exposure. So we've seen that students with ADD, when we get rid of the chemicals, eliminate chemicals in the diet, suddenly their behavior changes. We start to rebuild the microbiome, put some minerals in there. Suddenly we're having teachers of the, or coaches in teams, if they're in a sports team and everything, just saying something's changed. And sometimes even thinking that the child has been medicated because their behavior has changed so substantially. Also, essential fatty acids, getting onto the things that help the developing brain. See, the brain is about, say 60% structural fat. And just like if you're trying to build a home and all that's being delivered is some dodgy timber, then, you just build. What we do is in terms of building a house, you tend to go, no, that's no good, bring me the good stuff. But the bodies can only use the raw materials provided to build the brain structures and the nervous system and all that sort of thing. And so if all that's being provided is nasty, unhealthy food, then we're going to have some problems. And this is brain development is a big issue for teens. So for girls, obviously, things that I mentioned there, low trace mineral things can lead to PMS problems and all of this sort of thing. So for all teens, trace mineral supplements, essential fatty acid supplements, and even B vitamins and some antioxidants, just a good nutritional program makes such a huge difference. And then really being careful with the diet. For girls, this is a real issue for me. And we covered this in our hormonal health masterclass and some of our other sessions. A previous session of the Healthy, Wealthy, Wise show, we dealt with issues around hormonal imbalance. But this is the time too when many girls are being put on the contraceptive pill to balance their hormones. And this, I think, is a devastating thing. So let's just take contraception aside in the teen years, as teens, as there starts to be more experimentation with sex and this sort of thing. This is an issue for many parents, for many people in the in the area of health and wellness for teens, is sexual development and all that sort of thing, and contraceptive and sex education and this sort of thing. But if we were to take contraception aside, many girls are being put on the pill for all of the things that are irrelevant to do with contraception. So irregular bleeding, for acne, for PMS, for cramping. And this is not a good time to be getting onto those sorts of medications. Okay, not a good time, in our opinion. So obviously, we're in a situation where we have to say, talk to your doctor. But Dr. Cheryl Selman, author of Hormone Heresy, would encourage you strongly. Also, the author of Mothers Don't Let Your Daughters Get Breast Cancer would highly encourage you to make sure that your daughter was avoiding the use of the pill, if at all possible, and especially not using the pill for off-label benefits like regulating the menstrual cycle and these sorts of things, when natural alternatives are there. Just to show you how important nutrition is and how so many people just don't think that it's, makes that much of a difference. They actually found that there was a teen that went partially blind from just eating Pringles, fries, ham, sausages, and just bread. Was a picky eater and wouldn't eat vegetables. And so this was from damage to the optic nerve during that developmental time. So, I mean, that's just one extreme example here of the child presented with blurry vision, and they found out that it was permanent because the optic nerve had not developed properly because of the fact that the child was not getting nutrition. And they said he wasn't getting enough of the fibrous vegetables and all that sort of thing, and that's true. But, I mean, here's the thing. Again, if we deal with vegetables, it just doesn't make any logical sense not to supplement during the developmental period, in my opinion, because it's just so easy to supplement, and that's not an excuse for a poor diet. It's an insurance policy against deficiencies, because 78% of 4 to 8-year-olds and 95% of 14 to 16-year-olds don't eat enough vegetables. Okay, do not eat enough vegetables to supply the micronutrients, according to government studies. More than half of the children aged between 9 and 13 fall short of dietary calcium intake, just as one example. And then looking at this particular one about the social side of things, social behaviors were even more susceptible to the negative effects of poor nutrition than learning functions. So in other words, we've been talking about learning, but teens are concerned about their ability to interact with other people. And the children in the study who had poor nutrition during the critical 2-year period after birth, for example, tended to be more withdrawn, less active, and were less helpful than their well-nourished counterparts. So that's just showing that, not getting the proper nutrition when you're young can impact you later in life. But obviously, it's never too late to start eating properly, reducing chemicals, and optimizing nutrition through supplementation. It's never too late to start, but it's also probably never too early either to really look to optimize things. Now, in terms of, I mentioned before about the impact of just being careful with a lot of these typical PMS symptoms for young girls, they're being put on the pill to overcome this. And we just highly encourage you not to do that. Dr. Cheryl Selman said that all hormonal imbalance and the showing up of all these symptoms, it's a sign of poor health. So what say we correct the underlying imbalances rather than medicate, especially when we're dealing with younger women. And that's really what we covered with the 7 hormone myths for women, which was a previous Healthy, Wealthy, Wise session. But if you want to delve deeper into this from the point of all-round hormonal well-being, then we do have a masterclass on that. So looking at some success stories for adolescent years, my daughter has noticed significant difference in her skin and hair health and rarely gets any acne or blackheads now. She also finds she has less PMS and feels so happy about her hair growing faster. Something every 15-year-old girl wants, right? For sure. So this is a big issue. Remember, many girls especially are dealing with body image and all that sort of thing. And so nutrition can make a huge difference. I was delighted at how the trace minerals helped me keep going and stay clear-minded in long nights of study. And the herbal focus product that was suggested increased my concentration enormously, and it was especially noticeable in regards to my recall. It amazed me how well it worked, helping me with retention even after the exams. I would highly recommend them to everyone. I was a teenager with recurring and severe sinus when my mum changed our brands over to what was suggested by the Savvy team. Years later, I noticed I don't have any recurring sinus issues anymore. So there you have it. So that's been some information around being more of a savvy teen, some tips for a healthy body and a healthy life. And look, I encourage you also to remember the important notice: we're not medical practitioners here. We're reporting the news of many research scientists and other medical practitioners. So of course, if you have any questions, then do talk with your healthcare provider. But we'd love to know your insights and inspiration. I've been seeing some insights coming in the comments, so thanks. Thanks for all your positive comments. Just check it out. So yes, Paul was saying there that, wow, teenagers need nutrition more than even the rest of us. Yeah, it is particularly interesting that teens are often more deficient, but they also have higher demands than us during that developmental period. Linda just sort of saying that I found that colloidal minerals and mindfulness really helped my youngsters deal with stress when they were young teens. And so as I'm looking at the comments there, I might bring Linda on. Linda's our lead wellness guide and our community manager in our Healthy, Wealthy, Wise group. So let's just maybe bring Linda on and see whether we can have a chat about any of that. As being a mum of many, I shouldn't say many children, it's true. So Linda, what sort of thoughts do you have in terms of this as we're dealing with teen health and becoming a savvy teen?
Thank you, Corey. Yes. Hi, everyone. And yes, actually, I am a mum of many children, so that's not that's not untrue. So yeah, you've covered so many aspects, and they sort of, it's like the chicken or the egg. Which one leads to which, and what can we talk? It's really just such a great talk you've shared, because it really shows that we encompass everything, that everything impacts everything. Our sleep, our nutrition, stress, and teenagers are under particularly excessive stress, I think, these days, with peer pressure and study and having to achieve and perhaps not feeling up to the mark. And so it's really, there's so many things that are impacting teenagers today that and nutrition, and you talked about the sun and the effect that has on us, and physical activity, and when they're studying and spending so much time on the digital forums, which it's pretty encouraging to me that it's from research, it seems that some of the younger ones are actually not so much on digital screens, big screens, but they are spending more time on their phones. I'm here listening into to us. So yeah, it's looking at those studies. It's interesting that that there are sort of, well, it's pretty scary when you really look at it. I saw that the teenagers can now what do you call it, message without even looking at it, which is pretty scary.
Yeah, they're able to text without even being able to see the letters. They don't. So what you're saying, Linda, is teens don't go like this. They're able to just go.
I know.
Yeah.
I know.
But I mean, but looking at it like as a parent and everything, one of the things that you did notice with your daughters as they were teens when they were studying, that some of the primary things were trace minerals.
Yeah.
just helping them to cope with the later nights and wake up feeling more refreshed and being able to. So again, we see when nutrients are depleted, such as trace minerals, especially, it just really impairs the ability to cope and study and get on with things. So that was one of the primary things for all of your kids that you.
That certainly was, and I came across this information really when the younger ones were just entering their teens and the older ones were just leaving their teens. So I had a whole cross section of teenagers really dealing with issues and dealing with the normal issues that everyone deals with. But that was prior to a lot of the extra pressures that we have today on as far as the internet, just sharing my age here, going away. And I was looking at some studies that I did when we did a talk in 2010, which was looking at studies done in the 90s. And it just occurred to me, one of the ones I was looking at just at the turn of the century, the studies that were done were really prior to this whole internet boom. And yet we're talking about teenagers now who really grew up without knowing what that was like. So their whole life is digital. And so that has its own impacts. And when you talked about getting up in the morning and looking at the rising sun, and how healthy that is, there are a few comments that came in about
what does that look like? What does sunrise look like? And in a lot of ways, I many teens that practice sports and everything, they end up in a situation that one of the challenges is they stay up too late to try to get the study done, and then they're up first thing in the morning to go to the sport, and that was me. And so they're suffering from the sleep deprivation. So I actually was in a situation where I used to be more of an early riser. My parents went to work early and I would get up and do my study in the morning. But it's true, I never looked at the sun. I was under artificial light up in the morning, under artificial fluorescent lights. But I did do some sport, and I actually rowed. I was in the rowing team during high school. And so the blessing for me in a lot of ways is that I was out on the water when the sun was coming up a lot of the time. And so I was getting some of that light in the morning. So that was an advantage to that. And yeah, I agree. But most of the time, most students wouldn't be getting any of that.
Yes, it is interesting, and certainly it wasn't the case with any of my children getting up early. It wasn't something that they really liked about. And I know you've spoken about your sister, how she struggled in the morning. And I think a whole lot of the habits that are happening these days are really just making that more and more difficult. And the nutritional deficiencies you pointed out are really key. And the physical activity, we're not talking about exercise. I know you're big on exercise, but even just general physical activity isn't something that a lot of teenagers are spending time. And yet they say if you don't get 60 minutes of moderate activity, at least, this is no matter who you are, but for teens it's particularly important, and how much it affects your behavior and your thinking and the stress, your brain development.
Absolutely. So ultimately everything that we just went through is so important for everyone.
Yes.
Getting rid of the chemicals, improving your diet, getting rid of inflammatory foods, getting quality sleep, getting some safe sunlight exposure, looking after your microbiome. And so what the evidence is showing is it's important for everyone. It's that often what's happening is that teens are less focused on that than everyone else. And yet that is when the development is happening, and it's the most important. Not the least important, because they're just young and they can cope, they're just young. They can cope with the, a poor diet and all that sort of thing. Actually, no. Evidence is showing that they're coping, but it's not setting them up for the best life moving forward.
And the stresses on themselves and their development, the developmental years. I mean, as things are changing, their hormones. You mentioned hormones, and certainly for when I had teenagers and they were entering those early teenage years, I found that minerals just helped to balance a whole lot of them. They slept better, they studied clearer, they even in their early hormonal changes that help balance their hormones. But as they grew into older years, and I guess it's just listening to you, it made me realize that the pressures, the stresses, and
Yeah.
the things that they were going through
Yeah.
as they went through their later teenage years is one of the reasons why they really needed more support in their hormonal balance. And I'm talking about girls here. So you mentioned the action plans that we have, and certainly I found that they were absolutely of great benefit to the girls as
Mm.
they progressed. Yep.
Yep. And so really important. I just flashed that up on screen there for, if you can get some sun. It's like Emma
Mhm.
writes in here. The only time most people with Instagram see a sunrise or a sunset is on the app. Yeah. By the way, watching the sunrise on a video story from somebody on Instagram is not the same for your circadian biology as actually seeing it yourself. So do whatever you can to get some safe sunlight exposure. Really makes such a huge difference. So let us know what you thought about all of that we've just been covering here on the Healthy Wealthy Wise show. But again, we here on the Healthy Wealthy Wise show, we share hints and tips to really help you to maximize your health and well-being. So come back, join us regularly. We've got all sorts of things to share with you. But specifically, we would love to know, how can we help you? We actually have an online survey where we can, privately sort of find out what it is that you're struggling with and help you to design an action plan. For your best wellness journey, you really need a plan, some solutions, some guidance, and really community to tap in with that whole mastermind group. And if you want to cut through the confusion and have a guiding hand in the process of achieving wellness, then we can help. So reach out to us, become part of our community today, and we can even get you started for free with things such as the free Eat Savvy diet. So first step would be probably to request an invitation into our Healthy Wealthy Wise group. And you'll probably be chatting with Linda. Linda's our community manager there. So reach out to us. Let's get you started. Because certainly, look, if you want to improve something about your health and wellness, we can guide you there. Okay, we can help you cut through the confusion and all the outdated dogma and just get started on a holistic philosophy. So this is a statement that our original mentor in health and wellness and mental control and all that sort of thing said. Given the right conditions, including physical, emotional, and mental preparedness, your body will always heal itself. So we can certainly help. Congratulations for being with us here on the Healthy Wealthy Wise show. That's been the healthy side of things, where we've been dealing with the savvy teens, how to have a healthier body and a happier life. So if you've just joined us here for the Healthy Wealthy Wise show, it's Corey Sievers here. I'm your host, and here in the Savvy team, we help you enjoy improved health and lifestyle. We'd love to know where you're coming in from, any comments that you have as we cover this information. We'd love to hear it. Here in the Wealthy and Wise section, we're going to be talking about change your perspective, change your life. Interesting one. And this is something that we deal with a lot in our personal growth seminars and that sort of thing, workshops that we do. But it's equally important from a health point of view, as well as from the emotional, mental, and even work point of view. Change your perspective, change your life. Now, there's a few things that I'd really like to venture into and go into here. Like, for example, one of the things, you may have seen the movie Vantage Point. If you've seen the movie Vantage Point, I think it's about 10 years old, but the story focuses here on an assassination attempt of the US president, and it's seen from various vantage points or points of view, perspectives of the different characters. And the movie uses sort of the multiple perspectives to question what's the truth. Okay, what's the actual truth? And it sort of looks at the events reenacted from the different perspectives or vantage points to see what actually was truthful. And what was interesting, when you really think about it, what was interesting about this whole concept is that you get to truly see that there wasn't one truth. Everybody saw what was going on from their unique perspective, and they made a judgment call based on that. And this is what's going on in life. And it's just so important. I'm going to share some other stories about why it's important not to make judgments about what's going on in our life because we don't have the grander view, what's going on in someone else's life because we don't really know. And it's best just not mind our own business as such, because it's really good to be part of a community and to be helpful and supportive of other people. But to understand that we all have our unique look at things. Okay, and so Vantage Point's a great movie that shows that. And what I encourage you to do, it's not just a movie, it's important to see that whenever you're looking at something in life, there's not a right or a wrong, but there's a vantage point, there's a perspective. And here in the Savvy team, we're big on holistic well-being and more of the natural approach to well-being and everything. And that's our vantage point. How do we prevent illness? How do we maximize wellness? And so that means that we tend to not believe in a lot of the medications that are used, okay? Because medications don't correct the underlying issue, they suppress the symptoms. That's our vantage point. Some people come from the vantage point that's science, and they come from the vantage point that nutritional medicine is unscientific because it's more holistic. That's their vantage point. So we all have a different vantage point, and we've got to work out what works for us. So in life and in wellness, it's not so much what's the truth or what's the correct vantage point. It's sort of what is the way of looking at it. What's the viewpoint that actually works for us rather than against us? So we often do have people, I've shared before, that people have the vantage point or the perspective that, well, the doctor told me that there's absolutely nothing I can do about my psoriasis, it's genetic. Okay, well, do you want to continue to believe in that paradigm? Do you keep your eyes open for ways of optimizing your health and improving your skin, or are you totally satisfied with that perspective? And it's because when people then drop that belief and start to trial other things, that they notice that they can at least improve things, and if not eliminate them. So again, sometimes coming at things from a different perspective makes all the difference. Like our friendly cat here says here, sometimes you just need a different perspective on things. And that's really what this show is about. We hope to give you a different perspective on many different topics around health and lifestyle in general, okay? So just to give you a little bit of a different perspective on things. That's not to say that you see things upside down, but certainly it can make a huge difference to be able to look at things from a different point of view. And that leads us to this concept of the parable of the blind men and the elephant. And this is used to illustrate really how a certain bias or a belief system can prevent us from seeing a more complete picture of things. And that's what we were asserting, what I'm asserting really in terms of, a lot of the stuff that we're dealing with from a medical point of view and all that sort of thing. There's, like, let's say, for example, at the moment I'm working on delivering, I'd love to know your thoughts, whether you're interested in this sort of thing, dealing with neurodegenerative disorders and doing maybe a Healthy Wealthy Wise show and a masterclass on Alzheimer's, dementia, and neurodegenerative disorders. Because the typical vantage point or medical focus is that it's a one-way death sentence and there's nothing that can be done. And there's, medication can maybe slow down the progression of disease, but nothing can be done to help it. But in actual fact, that's because the research has simply been from the perspective or the vantage point of what one medication can we have to get rid of the issue. And so they've then found that, for example, and this is off the topic and on to another week's topic, but nevertheless, the vantage point has been that amyloid plaque is what is at the root cause of neurodegeneration in the brain. So if we could attack the plaque, we could fix the problem. So that's the perspective. What if we had a different perspective, which now research is showing that the amyloid plaque is a protective mechanism from the body about the underlying issues going on. Whoa, that's a different perspective on things. That means if we just remove the plaque, we're just removing the symptom, not the underlying cause. And we assert here in the Savvy team, and it's the same thing going on in the research into cardiovascular disease. Let's deal with stents. Let's talk about bypass surgery. That can be life-saving, but it's only dealing with the symptom, not the underlying cause. The perspective is that. So if we have the perspective of cholesterol buildup is the cause of cardiovascular disease rather than a protective response of the body, then, you know, our actions change. So this parable of the blind men and the elephant is really, really powerful in that the blind men were directed essentially to feel one part of the elephant. And so one says, an elephant is like a big snake because it's only feeling the trunk. No, actually, no, you're wrong. An elephant is closer to a tree stump because that blind man was feeling the leg. What are you saying? An elephant is like a sheath of leather because he's feeling the ear. You're all wrong. It's actually like a furry mouse. Okay, and so this originated in India, and this whole story's been widely spread around, and it really looks at the perspective. So the question here that we have to deal with is who is right and who is wrong. And I assert that that's one of the biggest challenges that goes on in this day and age. We actually have, I'm seeing nowadays in terms of functional medicine and natural medicine, that there are many authorities coming out to say that it's unscientific. All right, well, and it can't be proven by before and after, by double-blind placebo-controlled studies. Well, okay, neither can bypass surgery be proven by double-blind placebo-controlled studies. All we have is before and after evidence. John couldn't walk before the surgery, couldn't breathe. Now he can. Success. Well, same thing in natural and functional medicine. Problem here, treat some of the underlying issues, help the body to heal itself, no issue. Irrelevant as to whether it can be double-blind placebo-controlled proven, we experienced a change. And so I believe, again, when we look at this, we have to change the perspective. There isn't a right or wrong. There's a different way of looking at things. So when I assert that when we look at this, 20th century medicine has been, again, trying to find the issue, the gene, the bug, and treat that rather than zooming out and going, hang on, there's no use looking at the trunk or the foot or the ear or the tail. We actually have to zoom out and look at the whole picture of the health of the body. Now, obviously, that's from the healthy point of view, and we're involved in helping people reach a high level of wellness, so that's a big thing. But that's the same thing from a personal growth and life point of view. For your life, in your financial arena, for your personal arena, for the goals of your personal life, relationships, health, spiritual endeavors, and business, vocational, and all of that. Sometimes you can be so close to the picture that you make the wrong judgments on that, rather than zooming out, getting maybe a viewpoint from other people that are not as close to the situation. Because sometimes we can say, oh, everything's no good, it sucks, and life's not going very well. And when we get the different perspective of somebody else, we go, oh, actually, my life's really good compared to that. And so we then can change our perspective and learn to appreciate the good things that are going on for us. And so this is what I want to share a story here. And this is an old Chinese parable, really, about changing your perspective. And it's around this, we're calling it change your perspective, change your life. It's never the situation that's at fault. It's the way you choose to view it. And this is the story of the old Chinese man and his horse. And, in life, nothing is right or wrong, rare circumstances aside, of course. The key is the way you look at it, your perspective. And you can totally change what's going on for you in your life when you simply change your perspective. So let's have a look at this particular concept about changing a perspective, changing your life. So the old man and his horse, you probably have heard it, but so once there was an old man who lived in a tiny village, and although he was poor, he was envied by all, for he owned a beautiful white horse. A horse like this had never been seen before. People offered fabulous prices for the horse, but the old man always refused. The man was poor and temptation was great, but he never sold the horse. One morning, he found that the horse was not in the stable. All the village came to him and said, "You old fool," they scoffed. "It would have been better if you'd have sold him. Now the horse is gone, and you've been cursed with misfortune." The old man responded, "Don't speak too quickly. Say only that the horse is not in the stable. The fact, we could say. That is all we know. The rest is judgment. If I've been cursed or not, how do you know? How can you judge?" The people contested, "Don't make us out to be fools. We may not be philosophers, but great philosophy is not needed. The simple fact, your horse is gone and you are cursed." The old man said, "Whether it is a blessing or a curse, I cannot say. All I can say is the horse is gone." The people of the village laughed, and they thought that the man was crazy. They had thought he was simply a fool. Days later, the horse returned. The horse had not been stolen. It had simply run away into the forest. Now that the horse had returned, he had brought a dozen wild horses with him. And once again, the villagers gathered around and said, "Old man, you were right and we were wrong. What we thought was a curse was actually your blessing. Please forgive us. With a little work, the animals can be broken and trained and sold for much money." The man responded, "Once again, you go too far. Say only that the horse is back. State only that a dozen horses have returned with him. But don't judge. How do you know if this is a blessing or not?" The old man had a son, an only son, and the young man began to break the wild horses. And after a few days, he fell from one of the horses and broke both legs. And the villagers gathered around the old man and cast their judgments. "You were right," they said. "You proved you were right. The dozen horses were not a blessing, they were a curse. Your only son has broken both his legs, and now in your old age you have no one to help you. Now you are poorer than ever." The old man spoke again. "You people are obsessed with judging. Don't go so far. Say only that my son broke his legs. Who knows if this is a blessing or a curse?" It so happened that a few weeks later, the country engaged in a war against a neighboring country, and all of the young men of the village were required to join the army. Only the son of the old man was excluded because he was injured. Once again, the people gathered around the old man, crying and screaming because their sons had been taken. There was little chance that they would return. The enemy was strong, and the war would be a losing battle. They may never see their sons again. "You were right, old man," they wept. "This proves that your son's accident was a blessing. His legs may be broken, but at least he is with you, whereas our sons are gone forever." The old man spoke again. "You always draw conclusions that no one can know. Say only this: your sons have gone to war and mine did not. No one knows if it's a blessing or curse. No one is wise enough to know. Only God knows." So, when we think about this, this whole parable, it's really to say that your problems, it's not to say, I guess, that your problems are blessings in disguise or anything. It's not to say that, although, you could allude to that, but it's to say that often we can have misfortune and circumstances can change, and that in essence we are meaning-making machines. Nothing is either good nor bad, but thinking makes it so. So our beliefs can create our reality. And the science of epigenetics means that it's true. We create our life by the way we think and the act and our attitudes about life, as well as the nutrition that we take and our lifestyle endeavors and all that sort of thing. So the more we can change our perspective, our beliefs, and look to the good and not the bad, and not make judgments on ourselves and others or how things are going or whatever, it's nothing is, you believing that's a curse or bad or wrong doesn't help you. So just being neutral or believing everything always works out for me. Perspective makes all the difference. And look, if you're not achieving everything that you want in your life and your situation, then you probably have blind spots that are, again, obscuring your view. You're deeply emotional about it, and sometimes getting another perspective, seeing a vantage point by maybe asking other people for fresh eyes on a situation, that can really help. So I think that story, the white of the horse and the old man and his horse, really gives you an example that nothing, it's just a parable, but there's nothing that, there's no way that we can judge any situation in a life. We can just have a positive outlook on life. And so if you've seen the movie, I think it's in the Best Exotic Marigold Hotel, great movie there. he says in that movie, the owner of this hotel says, it'll be all right in the end. And if it's not all right, it must not be the end. And I just think that's great. So just remember that. Just remember, everything is working out for me. Just keep repeating that mantra. Everything is always working out for me. And if you want a little bit of humor there, you can add that, it'll be all right in the end. And if it's not all right, it must not be the end. So look, change your perspective, change your life. Just such an important thing to really to be aware of, and when we're looking at this, what are some of the things that we can do? What are some of the exercises? For a start, maybe getting fresh eyes on the topic, asking someone with a different viewpoint. Okay, getting in touch with a friend, saying, "Hey, can you give me a different perspective on this?" And look, if the people around you tend to wallow in all of the same sorts of things, like the old man and all the villagers from that story, if they tend to look at the negative things in life, then that's not fresh eyes. Again, how can you see things from a different perspective? So we encourage you to use a process that we simply call the about face process. Which is right. When we're looking at the situation that we don't want, then there's an equal and opposite way we can look at this, like doing a 180 and turning around. So, oh my God, I don't like the way things are happening in my life, whatever area of life is. Okay, that's what I don't want. What is it that I do want? Just flipping it, just going, right, well, that's what I don't want. What is it that I do want? How can I focus more on what I want than what I don't want? That will change. That will change what you see and what you attract to you. Okay. So that's the about face process. Another thing you might choose to do is if you're feeling stuck on a particular topic, is just to sit down and actually really think about the positive aspects of that particular situation. Really just sit with it and think, is there something positive going on? What's the best way I can look at this? What are the positive aspects of this? If that's still impossible for you because you're so close to it and it's so hard, then that's when you might simply want to go general and totally get off the topic and find something that can make you to feel better, something that's off topic that helps you to get a general feeling of well-being in your life. So, but again, really good to look for fresh eyes on the subject. And we often call this getting someone else to give you a helicopter view. Because, if you're right in the middle of it, or if you're on the ground, you sort of can't see what's going on around you. Whereas if you go up and stand up on a higher vantage point, you see more. And then when you go up higher, you see more. And like if you're getting a helicopter view, you can see everything else. And the little issue that you're dealing with is so small in the scheme of things. And this is, again, whether it be well-being and, or whether it be your life in terms of progressing towards your goals, we assert that many times we have such a narrow focus. We believe that medicine in a lot of cases has such a narrow focus and isn't looking at the whole perspective of things going on. They're looking for the magic bullet rather than the holistic philosophy. And that can also go on in your personal growth in life. You can get so focused. So again, if you're in your personal and professional life, if you've been struggling to accomplish something or whatever, maybe you need fresh eyes on it. Maybe you need to sit down and look for the positive aspects of what are going on. Maybe you need to think about the parable of that it's only a step in time. The horse is gone. Maybe tomorrow the horse comes back with 12 horses. So, again, it'll be all right in the end. And if it's not all right, it must not be the end. So, yeah, so again, maybe meet with different people that are different professions that are different from you to give you some fresh eyes on the situation. So to give you a really good look at this, at how we can be too close to something, I have a video for you that's about everyday items that are zoomed in. So the macro view of everyday items. So, and how we zoom out, we get a totally different perspective. So as we look at each of these things, see whether you can guess what the item is, and then see how good you were at it when we zoom back out again. So let's have a look. These are macro objects in real life and zooming out. So again, you'll get the picture that we can be too close to a situation to see the whole thing going on. And sometimes we need to step back and take a look at the whole aspects of what's going on. Let's have a look at this. So interesting, hey? Interesting how we can be so close to something that we can't see the forest for the trees, the big picture for being so focused on what's going on in one particular situation. So change your perspective, change your life. There's always another way of looking at things, and perhaps even a more positive, happier, more appreciative outlook on things. So Linda, are you with us there? Do you want to? Is there anything that you would like to share with us? Thoughts on that whole process about being too close to things and stepping back we covered this in a previous Healthy Wealthy Wise show about how it's really wise to step back periodically and take a look at your whole business and life and how things are going, because we can be so focused on the granular stuff that we don't get the big picture.
Yeah, Corey, that's definitely true, and certainly I've experienced that in my life, and I've witnessed it both from the receiving end of having someone else, we call it reframe, or giving another perspective, helping me reframe what's going on. But certainly, that's been difficult sometimes for me to accept that perspective. And I've also experienced it by from the other perspective of helping people, and even in their health and in business, helping people see a different perspective. And I've really got present with the difficulty that requires. Finding a way to get other people to see a different perspective isn't necessarily easy. It's because it does. To see something differently requires you to give up what you currently believe. Yeah, and I think one of the blessings we had way back last century, with where you were just a tiny tot, you were, as we were studying with that mentor, finding, he used to say, look, if you don't believe what I'm sharing with you, just put it on the shelf, don't discount it. And what I've realized more recently is that message really has helped me in so many ways, because it means that if I don't discount it, I haven't shut it out.
Yep.
It's there, but it's not, I mightn't believe it, but it's still there as an option, which makes it me more open to the possibility. Yeah.
For sure. Absolutely.
Yeah.
So, and we can have a shift in our whole emotional thing. So, you probably all know, any of you watching this or catching this on the on the podcast or whatever, you just think about it. Has there been a time in your life when you've had a particularly emotional situation or something that appeared to have gone wrong, like the man and his horse, and yet later on your viewpoint on that shifted, and it just wasn't the same? You realized that I can see where that led me, and why that was why I didn't need to have the negative viewpoint of that.
Yeah.
That everything was working out for me, and it will work out theoretically faster if we stayed positive instead of getting buried in the negativity there. And so, and what Linda's raised there is really important too. If we have a new idea that comes to us, instead of discounting it, just put it on the shelf. That way we've not said that's wrong. We've not said, nope, I don't believe that. We've said, I'm not up to speed with that right now. Let me just put that on the shelf, and I'll pull that off again later. I might need that in future. So there's nothing wrong with being a hoarder of perspectives. But, it might be bad to be a hoarder of things in life, but there's ample shelving space for different perspectives up there.
That's
okay? And another thing, it reminds me, Linda, that another thing that our original mentor used to say is, he used to realize that we all have different perspectives, and he would say we are all delightful deviations from the norm. Meaning that, just like we said in the microbiome, in the fun facts segment today, that we all have a unique fingerprint, and we all have a unique microbiome fingerprint. Yeah. We all have a unique perspective as well. So we all are, there's no normal. We're all delightful deviations from the norm. And if we recognize that there isn't a right or a wrong, there's just another way of looking at things. And let's be more open-minded to other people's viewpoints rather than closed-minded. Let's face it, there are wars fought over just a different viewpoint.
Yes.
So let's together be a little bit more open-minded. Any exercises that you've found beneficial in helping other people, or you personally, in terms of getting a different perspective on things there?
I'm not so much sure of an exercise. I'd like to talk about this particular experience, because you were talking about being open to other people's perspectives. But I can remember a distinct time when I had a particular perspective myself about a situation that I was in. In fact, we were jointly, we were in business together back then, and I'd made an assumption that we couldn't go to this particular event. It was an overseas event, and close off had happened, and we'd told we weren't able to achieve it. And we were listening to a person. We were doing a personal development program at the time, both of us.
Yep.
And this, as I was thinking about it and you were talking, it made me think of the mastermind principle. When two minds get aligned, powerful things can happen. And so as a result of listening to this program, I realized that I had been closed off to it, and we discussed it, and you said so did you. And so we opened ourselves up to the possibility of being able to attend, and followed through with that, and subsequent conversations with the people in charge that said it was impossible, and there were no more flights, there were no more accommodation, it just was total impossibility. And yet at the end of it, we achieved it. And I really think that combined, our minds combined, utilizing the principle of the mastermind, but also being open to possibility. And that's for yourself, I think. So it's not really an exercise so much as a, it gives me goosebumps.
You could, because you can say, well, what if? So I've been told that wouldn't, but because that's the thing, because that's all you did to execute on that was, okay, so there wasn't a fact. There wasn't actually a fact. So it's interesting when we look at the blind man and the horse story. There was like, okay, he said, all you can say is that the horse is gone. Well, all you could say is that you'd been told that you couldn't attend.
Yes.
That wasn't fact. That was actually simply opinion. So by you maintaining the openness, you said things like, okay, but what if I could? What action steps would I need to make? And they said, well, you'd have to do this, you'd have to do this, you'd have to do this. So you left that up to universal intelligence to really open the way for. But because you stayed open, because you weren't zoomed in on the macro, you were able to be open to the possibilities. And actually everything worked out a lot better than we even would have expected if we'd have tried to orchestrate that.
I know.
So isn't that the truth in life in general? It'll be all right in the end. And if it is not all right, it must not be the end.
Exactly. But what I've thought about that aspect of it, but I've never really thought about the power of the mastermind, the two minds of it.
Yeah.
So, bringing in those things. Yeah. Yes, we can make changes ourselves, but you were saying get somebody else's opinion, get someone else's perspective. There's power in that.
Yep, indeed. So there you have it, everybody. That's been the Healthy, Wealthy, Wise show for this particular session. We would love to know your thoughts on everything that we've been sharing, but obviously we've just been sharing change your perspective, change your life. And when you really understand what people such as Bruce Lipton say about epigenetics and those sorts of things, right now, just you being part of the show and getting a different perspective on things and changing the way you're thinking moving forward, right now, everything could be changing for you. Your health could be changing. The expression of your best genetic potential could be changing just because you shifted the way you think. Change your perspective, change your life. It's just so, it's scientifically proven. It's not just some freaky mumbo-jumbo personal growth thing. It's been scientifically proven with things such as the whole neuroscience has proven it, and the science of epigenetics has proven it. So look, if there's something we can help you do, we would love to help you change your perspective and change your life. And for your best wellness journey, you need a plan, you need some solutions, you need guidance, and you need community. And the community, as we've said there, is like that mastermind. It can help you. Well, your guides, like somebody to be that outside person that can give you a new perspective on things. And the community is like that mastermind to help you improve your life. Tap in with people that might have a helicopter view. So we give you all of that in the Savvy team. We would love to know, how can we help you? Reach out to us, tap in with what we do, and look, let us know what would make the biggest difference in your life right now. We're talking about being healthy, wealthy, and wise. Well, what would make the biggest difference? More health and vitality than you have right now, or more money and lifestyle? We can actually help with both of those things. If you're interested in capitalizing on the booming wellness industry, then our Savvy Home Business Division may be able to help you to generate an extra stream of income. And that's nice. It's nice to have options. So again, love to know what your thoughts are. Communicate with us in the comments. Reach out. If you want show notifications of when we're live, then the best thing is to get onto our notifications list. Just message the word show to us in Facebook, so Facebook Messenger, and they'll include you on the messenger list. So that's it for the Healthy Wealthy Wise show for this particular session. So love to hear your thoughts again. Let us know if there's something that you would like to know more about in the future. Just checking the comments here to see whether there's anything here as we say goodbye. So yeah, leave you with the thought here about our cat here. Sometimes you just need a new perspective on things, and that's really what we want to do here with the show. So again, thanks for joining us. All the best, and until we meet again next time, it's Corey Sievers here, encouraging you to be savvy. So all the best. See you next time.